if we look at this perfect storm of technology, with cloud being ubiquitous now and social media is really very much, in the mainstream. We've got 5G being rolled out. We've got artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality. We're connecting things, fintech, blockchain, a whole bunch of stuff that is all converging at a rapid rate around the same time. For the rest of our careers, we've got ahead of us potentially quite dramatic change that nobody really knows where it's going to head. So how do we equip ourselves as a CFO to best deal with that? What we know is that our processes are probably going to change. The way we interact with customers are probably going to change. But also, we've got this new toolkit that's kind of on order from Amazon and Google and other companies, which is going to land on our door, and suddenly we've got opportunities to do something with it. So we're going to need human creativity and imagination. How do we foster that in an environment where we're still kind of this task-driven mindset? And if you think about the number of projects that will typically land at our door as the CFO with our systems knowledge, and our because we have quite a privileged position as CFOs. We tend to be the de facto number 2 to the CEO. We have a great insight into the organisation, very holistic view. So we're in quite a privileged position, but also we're front and centre from getting a lot of responsibilities and roles as a consequence of these changes that will be rolled out. And with so many projects that are going to be on our plate, how do we best deal with it? And we're much better off having people operating in such a way emotionally that they really want to pour their heart and soul into our projects, that they operate, I call it the 3 levels of Endeavour model. We want people operating at level 2, wanting to do what we want them to do, as opposed to mechanically just doing what they feel they have to do. So, and these are the only difference between the two, because normally we hire capable people. The only difference, generally speaking, is the emotional attachment to what they're doing. And of course, the third level is not level 3, but it's level -1. It's where the emotion is one of resentment, and they're doing it. They don't want to get sacked, but there's something's gone on in the environment that's really left them in a negative frame of mind, which potentially spills over elsewhere and is a net negative to the organisation as opposed to a net positive. So our job as leaders is to try and take people from level 1 having to endeavour, or level 1 -1 resenting, if we can rescue the situation, into level 2 really wanting to do it. And a great way, there's a tendency for us as CFOs, because we're sort of quite left brain hardwired, often very logic brains, there can be a tendency to be perfectionist in our outlook. And being a perfectionist, once we've got people into pouring their heart and soul in, and we push them even harder, I've been guilty of this, we can turn them the other way. Emotionally, they go against us as opposed to working with us. So this is something that we can bear in mind and have to bear in mind if we really want to drive through the projects that we want to drive through in the months and years ahead. Because if we look at the statistics, and it's not just Gallup that says this, but Aon and many other organisations, and there's lots of rhetoric, have been saying how productivity is very low levels of engagement in the workplace, dissatisfied workforce, higher challenges with stress and problematic mental health. All of these things will make our life much more difficult as we start to try and drive the change that's inevitably going to sit at our door as the CFO. And this is a terrible statistic. When you think about how much time we spend in the workplace, if only 15% of the global workforce is highly involved and enthusiastic about the workplace, then really that's something we as a society have got to find ways to address. And I think part of that rests with employers, but part of it rests with us as individuals as well. If we're dissatisfied, it comes back partly to choices, partly to having a confidence to really do something that we're more hardwired for and more passionate about. So there's a number of dynamics here that sort of feed into this, but we really need to address it to the extent that we can with our teams. And bear in mind, we wear two hats as a CFO. We manage our own team, and we're trying to manage an entire business. And I think part of the problem, part of what's driving this whole mindset, is a show me the numbers mindset, shortcutting to show me the numbers, pushing people. We're pushed as CFOs, we're pushed by shareholders, we're pushed by the CEO, but we sometimes find ourselves as well pushing the folks that work with us for numbers and to understand where things have gone wrong. But whereas in reality, our role is to think about how we not only report the numbers but shape them, and how we influence the numbers. And it's people that influence the numbers. It's activities and people that deliver the numbers. So the more that we can recognise those tendencies which have been drummed into us and hardwired, 50 years of a focus on shareholder value we've really had. Things are changing now. We've got a workforce that's changing. So every year that goes by, a couple of percent of the folks who were from the black and white rented TV age pop out of the workplace, and a couple of percent of the digital natives kind of drop in. So the sheer mix of the individuals we're working with day in, day out as senior executives is shifting inexorably, but also we have a greater level of dissatisfaction with the haves and the have-nots. We've got much more of a focus on well-being. People are much more inclined to talk work-life balance. I sort of mentally I take that on a level in terms of, I think in many ways we need to decide the life we want and have our work and our technology and our financial assets support that, as opposed to just simply thinking, well, this amount of time I'm going to work and this amount of time will be leisure. I think there's cleverer ways potentially that we can actually blend our lives, but that's a matter for a different discussion. So I think there are changes in the environment, but we still have a very, very strong legacy in our workplaces of a sense that we simply have to try and shortcut to the numbers. This is a banker's statue, by the way, in Luxembourg, in the banking district. And if you look at where I've put in the word "show me the numbers," that actually hides an individual who's carrying a briefcase alongside the statue that happened to be in the photograph. And that just gives you an idea of just how large this crazy statue is. And I think it represents quite well the extent to which we have this mindset and this challenge in our workplace.